Hey, there we go. What's up? It's Taylor. I hope this is working. I'm just going to take a second to pop the YouTube link in the chat and everything. Give me a second. Oh. Okay. We're live. How you doing, Elliot? Hey, gang. I'm doing an open source explorers live stream, so I'd say it's totally fine. If there's going to be a lot of discussion, then if you can do it in that part of the office. Cool. Glad to see y'all here. I'll just get headphones going. Okay, bear with me one more second, y'all. Sweet. Okay, I think everything's set up. So today, what I was hoping to work on was our new landing site, which is very exciting. We have a number of things in progress, but I know that there's been some questions about Puck, and so I'm hoping to kind of get into Puck, how it works, and take a look at hooking up on our backend. We have Strappy. On the front end, we have Next.js and Puck, and essentially, how do we hook those two up together? So first things first, maybe I should start sharing my screen. Here we go. Share the entire screen. Sweet. I hope y'all can see the screen now. So I'm going to go ahead and go to GitHub. Well, not logged in Chrome. Let me get this set up too. Sorry, it's a little bit of a chaotic day, but we will be up and running in no time. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat, and please jump in with questions, comments in the chat. I am not. Yeah, always like some audience participation. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and get logged into GitPod. Okay, so I'm using GitPod as my IDE. It's a nice online kind of Visual Studio IDE. Yo, what up, D? How you doing? So D's going to know exactly what I'm talking about. So here we have our GitPod, and I've been working on this this test branch to try to just see if I can hook Strappy up to Next.js. So let's get that going. And I'll also get our backend going here. And yep, should be sharing my screen. So these are loading. That'll take a second. which one's going to load first. And Ramon will be joining us in just a moment. He had a small fire come up at work, but I think he'll be on at the 15-minute mark. So here we go. Now we are running the, this is the back end. Front end still getting pulled up. So let's go ahead and take a look at, get caught up with what's happening in Strapi. Let me go ahead and open the admin panel here. Logging into my developer instance of Strapi. And some of the folks at the Open Source Explorers program, including Dee, have been working on modeling our product information content type. Let me go ahead and make sure I have that branch checked out as well, since it's not merged in yet. Branch. And let me bump up the, there we go. If you have any trouble at all ever reading what's on the screen, the font size, anything like that, please let me know, and I can always increase the font size as well. So we're going to check out the feature product content types branch. I'm just going to run through a quick reboot here, make sure we have everything good to go. Here we go. So I need to change my node version. This is something that's fixed in Saga, but has not been backported to this branch. So I will do a yarn nvm use 18. NVM install 18. Go ahead and install that version of Node. And now we can, now it's being used, right? So now we can do a yarn install, make sure we have all our dependencies, which should have already been pre-installed on Gitpod. So that's the back end. While we're waiting on that, I'm gonna go check out the front end here. And we will go ahead. This was what I was working on. So do a yarn install here too. Great, that's already up to date. And I forget the exact commands. Let me bump my font size up here. There we go. So we can run a yarn dev, get our front end up and running. And then it's still loading. Oh, there we go. So now we can do a yarn build, go ahead and build our admin panel for the back end. Awesome. So it looks like I want to catch up with the code that I've been working on the front end while we wait for the back end to build. So we can see there's some new components, right? Now we've made this new item picker field. The goal here is to just test, can we get an item from Strapi and can we expose it, you know, show the product name or something on the front end to test the connection between the back end and the front end. So our item picker field just has a simple name. We're just trying to show the product name right now, the item name. It has this fetch product item list. So it's an async function. We're going to go ahead and grab that from our backend. That's hard coded in for the test, but eventually we'll move that to a config file or something so that everyone can point to their own development backend. And then we just dump the resulting JSON and return that list of items. And so this is a pretty simple field to add to a component, right? And it's an external data source that mainly just fetches these items. So we also have this component. I'm going to make an item heading. So here we're pulling in the component config, some stuff from Radix, and the item picker field props and the item picker field itself from that file we just looked at. So we can have a title. There's a few settings in this component. And then we have this heading configuration. So this is where Puck comes into play. For every component, it needs to know the fields, needs to know the default props for those fields before you customize them. Then it has this render function. So a lot of this is going to look very similar to our actual heading, right? Props, heading config, same fields, same defaults, essentially the same render function. What we're trying to do here is just a way to kind of bootstrap this test, is that we should be pulling this title from the item picker field, right? That's the main difference there. Instead of that being a string field or something, we are saying, here's the type, here's how to fetch those products, and then Puck will allow us to select that. So that's cool. The last set of changes is down here in the Puck config, just making this, and this might be why it wasn't working earlier. We need to rename some stuff. So we want this to be the item heading config. Great. That's now compiling. So on our front end, this is kind of our test page here. And Puck is really cool because the whole point is to allow our admin and operations people to change parts of our website. This test page is a little bit chaotic, but you can have hard-coded bits, right? The bits that we want fine-grained control as developers and designers. But there's a lot of content on our website that we don't want a developer to have to merge in a pull request just to update the latest news items on a region page or something like that. So we're using Puck in order to hand that control to other team members so that they can go communicate the latest about the regions, about our responses, so on and so forth to the world. So I'm going to log into the edit page. Awesome. And here we have an item heading. So what we should be able to do is hopefully now, gosh, my mouse is not working. Just drag and drop that in. Let's go ahead and put it right under the blog post. Awesome. So we have this item heading. It looks like we're probably getting some errors. So failed to fetch. So that's fine. Let's double check our backend here. Our backend isn't running. So now we want to get this running. Do a yarn develop. Cool. And let's go ahead and make that public so that the front ends can access it. So refresh our Strapi backend admin panel here. Awesome. So now we can see we have this product item type. This is what we're trying to pull. So I'm going to go ahead and create a few quick product items just to make sure we have some sample data in there. A good example would be like tent. And maybe it's a 2-person tent. Category would be shelter. That doesn't exist yet. So let's start with the category.
Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ramon.
What's up, everybody? Sorry I'm late.
No worries at all, bro. How you doing?
Not too bad, thanks. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your flow. Hi, everybody. Hi, chat. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah, I caught a little bit of what you're up to. You're adding some stuff to Strapi.
Yeah, so basically, we've been working in Strapi on getting our shipment data reporting out of very messy spreadsheets and into our nice new backend. And so what I'm trying to do today is essentially hook Strapi up to Puck on the front end so that we can make sure that folks are able to pull data to the front end. And we're just doing a quick and dirty example today, but I think that this is really great content to get recorded so that as folks kind of dive into the real work, they have an example, they see some files, stuff like that. So if you let me run my flow for another few minutes here, Ramon, then
let me interrupt you.
we'll be able to look at stuff together. So right now, I'm just making sure we have some test data. Like I want to add a tent, and maybe we'll have a 2-person tent, and that'll be shelter. And I'm not going to worry about the additional metadata right now. We're just trying to get this basic item information in there. So what we can do is now create a new entry. Let's add a 4-person tent, right? So we have another tent. This is going to be 4-person on the size style. That's also going to be shelter. And then let's go ahead and add something in a different category. How about soap? It's going to be a 250 gram, say 200 gram bar of soap. And that's going to be hygiene. So that's all good. We got some sample data in there. Now we need to publish that data. So I'm going to start off and publish the categories that we created. That's okay. And then we're going to go ahead and publish all of these items as well. Cool. So now I believe to make sure that we have access to that data, we can go to our development instance of Strapi and API items. Nope. Let me just double check settings here, make sure that's publicly accessible. Yeah, okay. So we're going to make sure the public can read the item and the list of items. Let's try that again. There we go. So now the data is showing up when we do this. And maybe we can try categories as well. And then I think the cool thing is we can do categories, question. D, if you're on the chat, do you remember what that keyword was to get the sub data essentially? Oh yeah.
Oh.
Populate equals star. Boom. So now we have a few API endpoints to grab our categories, to grab our items, to grab everything, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the backend that's set up, and we're just running it. I don't think we need to make any code changes to the backend. Just wanted to make sure we could access some sample data through our API here. On the front end, Ramon, we've created this item heading, right? So we have a very basic heading like hello world. This item heading, we're trying to essentially do the same thing, but for our test, instead of customizing the title, right? If we click here, you can change the title as a string field. We want to be able to select the item from our Strapi backend. And so that's the bit that we've kind of got the components set up, everything, but I'm just trying to work through, what do we need to do in order to make this fetch work? And so I think the first thing is this a Git pod configuration setting? Since I'm not running it on my local environment, I can't just point it at the local host, with the right port or something. I want to double check that this is actually the link. So we have aggregated JF000 and WSEU 109. So let's take a look. Yeah, so this was probably from the previous instance, which is an easy fix. So what I can do is just go to our API call here and take the first bit of this. And I was saying earlier, I'm being a bit messy for a quick and dirty example here, but in the item picker, I'm just hard coding it in. Eventually, we can refactor this out essentially to a environmental variable. But I just want to see if the connection works. So now let's try that again. Oh, something popped up. That's cool. That's cool. So at least it's loading the data. Now, obviously,
Okay.
we can't select the data. I'm not sure why we can't select the data. So there might be some processing of this API result that hasn't been done yet. But Ramon, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're at like a good setup point to work, and want to say hi to you. How's your day going? Sorry to hear
Not-
about the fire at work.
Oh no, there was no fire. It was just a fire alarm. So we just got stuck there.
Oh, I thought you had something in production that, a pager went off
Oh no,
on,
no,
one
no,
of your side projects or contract work or something.
no,
But
no. So I had to commute back home, and that's why I was kind of like rushing all over the place.
yeah, well, hopefully I got us covered here. We started
Yeah,
more or less on time. Once I knew where to look for the StreamYard login, we got Dee and some other folks on the stream, which is awesome.
amazing.
And of course, we're recording this on YouTube, right?
Yeah,
So we can show people this work, and that's why I wanted to do the front end, back end. I know that we have different people in the Open Source Explorers program working on different parts of our stack. This seemed like a good way to incorporate both of them, and kind of on the stream model how we're solving this, hooking up the back end to the front end so that people can go back to this video as they start working on actual features and actual components that might need to use that back end data.
yeah, fantastic. No, I sorry to interrupt the flow. So we've set up a workflow for getting these interactings. What did you have in mind for getting us set up moving forward?
Yeah, so I think the back end is pretty good. We're working off a branch that hasn't been merged into our main branch Saga yet,
Yeah.
but I've been working on that branch with our team. So they've done a great job, and that lets us get these items and products in there. And it's about to hit Saga anyway, so a little bit of a preview for everyone else here. And then on the front end, I just created kind of throwaway example branch, something we can push up, right? So people can see this code, but not something we want to merge in, kind of building off of my work during my mentorship sessions. So yeah, I can go back. I'm happy to drive today, Ramon.
Yeah.
And sorry, it
Sorry.
blinked out. If everyone watching, I'm in Serbia. The Wi-Fi isn't always the best, but I'm back with you now, I think.
Great. Sorry, I lost you there for a second. What were you saying?
Yeah, I feel confident because I'm kind of picking up some work that I was doing in the mentorship session
Perfect.
of driving today. And then I think what would be really valuable as the navigator, Ramon, is if you can stop me. I've been kind of rushing through to get to this point. Now we can slow it
Perfect.
down. Let's talk about as we're going through, ask me questions, help me dive in and explain stuff to the folks watching the stream.
Sounds good. Yeah. Sounds good. So you'll be driving again. I'll be navigating. This is for folks that are watching and are unfamiliar. This is we'll be doing some pair programming now live, where Jay will be driving, so doing the typing, and I'll be doing the navigating, which is giving ideas, looking up documentation, asking questions. And folks in the chat, if you're watching, this is more of a ensemble programming where we don't just have a driver and a navigator. We also have an ensemble. So all of y'all in chat, please ask questions, join in, question us. We don't have all the answers right away.
Yeah. Also, we'll have questions sometimes. There's often not a
Totally.
right way or a wrong way to do things.
Absolutely.
And so if you see us looking up how does something work in docs, you want to jump into the docs and help us find the answer, or give an idea for how to implement a function or something, please let us know. It's definitely an interactive experience.
Sounds good.
Cool. Great. I'll go back to my screen share. And just one thing to note, Ramon, I can't see the chat and stuff. Like I only have the one monitor. So do let me know. Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, no worries at all. So our backend's working great. And we got through that initial error of like, hey, but now this content selection, something's going on here. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at this fetch product items list. And it's expecting to give us a list of items, which I think right now should just be the name of the item, right? So I think we need to process some data here. Well, so let's go back to this. Oh, sorry, go for it.
Just wanted to say, love the comments in pseudocode. This is really helpful for me to understand what it is that we're doing.
Totally. And that's what I like is like Puck's a little bit confusing at first, but once you kind of get a sense of it, right? Here we're making a field. We're making, this guy right there to select the data. And so it's this external field. Puck can help us. It's got some good built-ins. And then the main thing for it is fetching the data so that the Puck data selector knows what to give us, right? And then this bit over here, this item heading, that's a component that's showing up on the page. And so for the item heading, it's got some props, it's got some other options there. And then we're saying one of the fields in this component is the title, which instead of just being a string field or something, we're going to use the item picker to select the item name, which becomes the title, right?
Got it.
Yeah. And like a product, an item name is a title, like, yeah, that's marginally useful. But again, this is just an example, get the front end and the back end hooked up. I could see like a product card being much more useful, where you select the item and then it gives you the item title, some other information like the value of the item, maybe pulls in some other external data, like how many items of this type have we shipped historically, things like that. So this is just kind of focused on making the hookup happen today, and we can explore this more once we know how to hook Strapi and Puck and Next.js up together. So what I'm doing now, I think the reason that this is showing up blank is we're not giving Strapi the right data. So we need to double check. Let's see, Moon, do you know how to nicely format JSON? Like I want to take this API response and format it so we can dive into that structure.
I don't know how to do it in Gitpod or VS Code, but I do have an online app that I use for this. Shall we try that?
Yeah, totally. What do you recommend?
It's an app called alchemize.app. That's with a Z. Alchemize, yeah. .app.
Like that?
Yeah.
Nice.
And at least I hope so. Oh, don't tell me it doesn't exist anymore. Give me 1 sec. No, sorry, it's alchemizeapp.com. My mistake.
No worries.
So what this does is I use it more than anything for quickly formatting or pretty printing JSON. If anybody on the chat has a recommendation. So if you go to Prettify now.
There we go.
This is what I use. I find it super helpful.
Totally. So the first thing I'm seeing here is there's kind of the data's nested, right? Because we're grabbing all the items. And so I don't think I've accounted for that. And it looks like there's some really helpful, essentially metadata here to support pagination and things like that. So that might be the first thing is, can we go ahead and I'm going to give us some more space here. Await fetch. Then we want to take the results, turn them into JSON, and then we want to access that data array. And maybe we need to do like so this gets into some TypeScript stuff because it's not sure that data exists.
Right. I think the problem is that res.json gives you a promise, so you need to do a then after that. And now you've got that.
Then we're going to have the
right.
Something like that, maybe. That looks good.
Okay.
Or actually, this might be clearer.
Wait, hold on. If you're doing async and await, maybe you don't need the then.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering here. So maybe we can restructure this instead of using promises to use async and await. So items.
You're already using await on line 14, so that would be response exactly, and then const items JSON equals items response dot JSON.
Then finally we get to the items equals items JSON dot data.
Yeah.
Oh.
What's it not liking there? Promise. Oh, you forgot to wait.
Just the
line 15. You forgot to wait.
Oh, is the JSON also an await thing?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. So that looks pretty clean. We're kind of get the response, turn it into JSON, then access this data there. So let's see, does that do anything for us? Drag my item heading. I want to select the data. Oh, so now we have the IDs showing up. That's kind of cool. But that's not super useful. I'd like to see more than just the IDs here. So let's go look up this external data type in Puck, right? And see if we can't kind of have it show more than just the item ID. See here, they have a couple of things. It's like a little table of that data, which would be more useful for us. And so the model they have here is an array with the title and the description. I want to go back to our Alchemize. So here we have ID, and then we have these attributes, right?
Right.
Okay, so we need to step farther into this data here, right? So data, that ID, that's why that's showing up. But I think we need to get into attributes, items, data. Actually, you know what? You know what's going on here is because we did it by category, whereas this is getting a list of all the items. Let me change my...
Gotcha.
Yeah, so what we want to do here is maybe items here. Let's grab this JSON. Let's take a look at what this looks like, because that's the call we're actually using right now. So here we have data, there's an ID, and then there's attributes. So I think what we need to do, Ramon, is probably process this down a little bit so that the ID and the attributes are all at the same level. That's what I'm seeing in the Puck documentation here, right?
Makes sense.
Cool. So we can do a map for this, right? Would that be the right way to approach this?
If we want to get an array out of it, yes.
Okay. So here we're going to have an item, and then return ID is... Actually, we can do the nice spread operation here. So we have ID, attributes. We can just say ID, and then we can spread attributes.
Oh, that's elegant. I like it.
Right. So we know from here the two top level fields on each item that's being returned by the API call is ID and attributes. We essentially want to make the attributes bit go away and just kind of shift all these up. And so what we do is we create a new object here. We're kind of pulling out those two top level fields instead of having the item itself. And then we're just saying, give us the ID and give us everything inside that attributes, sub object there.
So what you're doing, so what you're doing is essentially flattening this data structure.
Exactly.
Got it.
Awesome. So you can see here, we're kind of taking that attributes out, we're flattening it. And I'm just leaving this comment here, like, I know what this means, but if I look at this code in 3 months, am I going to remember these sorts of details, right? Or am I going to have to go back to the API column, back to Alchemize? Or if someone new looks at this, I think using these kind of newer JavaScript and TypeScript features can be really helpful. And like you said, can create elegant code, but we have to understand the code, right? So that should help us here. Let's give this a refresh.
Okay.
Here we go. Now can we... There we go.
Wow.
That's looking a lot better. Yeah.
Wow, that just worked, huh?
It just worked. That's what I'm saying is Puck's really thought through a lot of this. It's designed to work with Strapi. And now we can see we have, not just the tent, but also what tent is it, right? Because it might be confusing if you just see the name or something. We probably don't need the created at, updated at, published at data here. So that's something that we could also remove. But I want to try out, we can clean that up later. What happens if we select 10?
So it seems we're trying to display an object inside a component when we should be really displaying those attributes or like stringifying it or something. Where would we be doing that?
So I think in the item heading here, right, we said the title is a string here. So it's expecting a string, but what we're picking is this flattened object. And so we should probably update our component to not just take a string, but understand what an item is. So I think what we can do here is, first of all, let's make some types, right? Let's describe what make a new folder for our product types. And then we can make a new item.tsx.d.ts, right? That's the naming convention for types.
Sorry. Oh, you mean to make a file that's a TypeScript definition? Yeah.
Yeah. And just for consistency's sake, I'll name this product. So what is an item? And you're gonna have to remind me. I'm a little bit rusty with my type.
Because we don't want an interface. We want to type export type item equals, and then you define it. I don't see any squiggly red lines, so I'm feeling pretty good about this.
That's good. I have a question though. Do we want an interface or do we want a type here? Like, is this something, if we're trying to get rid of those, the created at, the updated at sort of stuff, is that going to break if we make this a type and then those fields are included? Or if it's an interface, is that a bit more flexible for us?
So that's a good question. And the reason I hesitate is because, first of all, I had to look up the difference between interfaces and types because I always forget. But essentially, the big difference here is that a type allows us, are more flexible, let us define like primitive data types or union or intersections and other stuff.
Okay.
Whereas interfaces are used to describe the shape of an object. So I don't think we would be expecting items of different structure that should conform to an interface per se, but
Gotcha.
rather we've got a
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And it looks like some of these fields can be null, like the age gender field. And so we need to do like a string or null, right?
yeah.
Okay. What other fields? Oh. So size style is going to be string or null. And we don't have the category in here yet because we're not populating that on our API call yet. So if we want the category, that's a separate object, right? It's a relationship between that category and each type of item. And so that's going to be something that we hook up later on here. Let's just focus on that item naming bit. So now that we have this type, I think we need to go into our we can do two things, right? Can we add typing here? Like right now, items is any, but we probably want this to be a item array, right? That's what we're trying to get out of this. Oh no,
No,
the
yeah, it's the
data.
data.
Yeah. So we're
But
still
we could,
processing that. This would be our
yeah, I was
item
gonna
array.
say.
Okay. So let's go ahead and
You want
add
to import
that.
that? Oh, you know what I learned? If you hover your mouse
What?
on the M, sorry, if you put the cursor on the M, so if you click there, just after the M, and then press Control and space.
Oh, look at that.
Not bad, huh?
Not bad at all.
So, fun fact for those watching, I started doing these streams with Taylor like several years ago, and back then I was a complete newbie to VS Code because I'm a Vim weirdo. But over the years, I've been learning these little like VS Code tips and tricks, and now I feel like I get it. I get why people love it. I still like Vim, but I get why people love VS Code. But sorry
Yeah.
to derail us.
No, that's awesome. It's, thanks for sharing your knowledge. So
Totally.
now our item picker we know is giving us an array of items types, and that's the data processing that we want to do. So now we need to change our component to accept that, right? So title is actually going to be an item, and we can do the same trick there. Add the import.
Well, we don't have a name field on items, do we? Sorry, a title. We have the name.
That's true. We don't. Yeah. So I think this might be an underlying Strappy issue that's more of messing around with TypeScript, right? Because this should just assign that item to the title field, right? So actually, maybe let's rename this. Instead of title, we have an item. That makes more sense for what we're trying to do here. And the default item picker props is not going to be the name. So we're going to have to update our defaults, right? So let's go back to our field here. It's not actually the field props. That's just our item type, right? So do we even need to redefine this?
I don't know.
Item. So I think what we can do is just say this gives us an item. Get rid of that. And then we do need to give these defaults. So let's go look at our fields. And since for the defaults, we're not going to have a number Yeah, that's where we might still want the item picker field props to be the same. Is there a way to like inherit? I basically want to say, give me all of this, but ID and name could be null because for the defaults, like we don't have those yet.
Why wouldn't we not have them, out of curiosity?
Well, just for this default field props, like before we select an item pulled from our data, like we basically need to say, here's a blank item where the name is nothing. The, for example,
Right.
age, gender is null, size, style is null. We have a name, but it's going to be blank here.
So do we want to like set those with the optional question mark? Also, I think number and string might want to be lowercase. Because they're primitives. That could be
Oh
wrong.
yeah, that's a good point. No, I think you're right. We don't want the string object. We want the string primitive.
Yeah.
So
can we make these optional?
Yeah. So how do I do that again?
You put a question mark just before the colon, as right where your cursor is now.
Like that? Okay.
And then you're good. You can do that for all of them.
Well, I think I'll leave these as null because that kind of more closely maps the data, and then we can just ignore the ID here. And so then this is going to become an item. That works. We no longer need this interface. And then coming in here, props is item picker field. That's still running into the complex TypeScript error, but I don't think that actually matters. And then the default props, that now lines up well. We have item being passed to the render function. And if there's no item, return no item selected. If there is an item, then what we want to do is item.name here. So now our types are lining up. I'm going to ignore this for now. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Oh, we're getting errors.
Uh-oh.
Failed
to fetch. My workspace timed out. That's okay. We'll give it a second here. And so this is where down the road, Ramon, we might want to set up a staging environment, right? Where folks working on the front ends can point to the staging environment that's up and running. This code isn't merged into Saga yet, so that's why I'm kind of running both the front end and the back end. So npm use 18. Okay, so we're letting that run. Nice, so that should be up and running again. Let's go ahead and make it public. And we're going to go ahead and select a tent. Oh, there we go. It's showing up as a tent. Look at that. Look at that. So like this obviously isn't super useful, but again, this This gets it hooked up back end to front end. This can become a card. This could become a table, listing out multiple items. There's a lot that we can do with this data here. And the nice thing is that, using Puck, we can hard code that if we want to, but we can also create these more flexible components where if we wanted to, at a fundraiser, feature a number of items that we're sending for one of our responses, and then update those as we get, donations to cover shipping one type of item or, sourcing one type of item. We can then highlight the next one, right? And we can kind of customize that. And that's something that the logistics coordinators, the admin coordinators can do on their own. So I'm feeling pretty good about how all this worked out. And I know we are coming up to the hour. Unfortunately, I do have another meeting after this one, so I probably can't stay too much longer. I got a bit of flexibility here, but don't want to keep my friends in the office waiting either for too long.
How about we
do we feel good about this?
Yeah, I'm feeling great.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We have a working branch for this, I take it.
Yeah. So what I've done, because this isn't necessarily, code that's going to end up in production, but is a good example, I've created this branch example, create products picker with Strapi data that shows the field. We have the type. It has the item heading component, and it has the Puck config. And so the one thing that I want to do before we should add a comment here or something like that, since we haven't moved this out to an environmental variable yet. I don't know. Is there an easy way to do that? Do we have an env? So it looks like we don't have an env file set up for this project yet.
No.
Yeah, so I'm not going to do that yet, but I will leave a comment. Replace with your Strapi.
URL? Yeah.
Yeah, with your dev. So if people look at the changes on this commit, they can see, okay, I got to change up this hard-coded URL, and then I can, access my development backend instead of, whether that's localhost on a port or that's Gitpod or whatever it is, and be good to go here. Cool. -m feed create item picker field to choose item from Strapi external data source. Show an example via the item heading component. Does that seem like an okay commit message? It's a bit long there, but I wanted to point out those two kind of key parts of this.
True. No, I think it's a good length because it's descriptive.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to commit that. Push, and let's go ahead and set the upstream here. Oh. Awesome. So that is now live. We go back to our GitHub. You can check it out on the next website.
Yep.
And we can take a look at our branches.
Yeah.
Oh. And yeah, here's our example branch. So not something that there's necessarily going to be a pull request for, but definitely something that's useful to link to check out. I don't know, is there a good way? Because I'd love to see a diff between this and Saga so people can see those specific files we changed. But I don't want to accidentally merge it in,
No, if you click on compare and pull request, like it's not going to make a pull request. And you scroll down for me real quick, please. Keep going. You can see that diff there. We're not making a pull
Cool.
request yet. We're
So
just comparing.
yeah, for sure. I wonder if there'd be a way to kind of, and we'd probably have to formalize this a bit, but use draft pull requests to just have this comparison visible, but with some sort of way to say, like, don't actually merge this in. If there's like a setting we can set for these example branches or something.
Yeah.
But this certainly works for now, and folks can access the example branch. They can do a git diff locally. There's one commit in there, so kind of diff from the current commit to the previous one. See how we've done it, and of course, this is something that now that we know how it works from Run, we can show other people in the open source explorers, and then there will be actual code that gets merged into production with probably cleaner examples than this, kind of bootstrap version.
Perfect. Well, cool. Don't let me keep
Awesome.
you from your meeting, Taylor. Just wanted to say thank you for doing this, and thank you everybody in the chat for joining. We try to do these every week, so hope to see you at the next one.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back on our streaming, bud, and looking
Same.
forward to getting back into it next week too.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.
Awesome. Take care, y'all.